So you can put a freebie, a lead magnet, the same type of lead magnet that we would use on any other traffic platform, you can use for Amazon as well. Have a dedicated page right at the front of that book.
Welcome to the Creator's Adventure, where we interview creators from around the world, hearing their stories about growing a business. If you've decided to publish a book and you're wondering, should you go the traditional route, self-publish, or maybe have some kind of hybrid publisher, today's guest has the answer for you. As well as when you're writing that book, how can you ensure that it's going to provide value for your business? Hey everyone, I'm Brian McAnulty, the founder of Heights Platform. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, we're here today with Morgan Gist MacDonald. She is an author, speaker, and the founder of Paper Raven Books, an innovative publishing company designed to help first-time and experienced authors alike through the writing, publishing, and marketing process so they can get their books published and build a loyal readership and long-term career as an author. Morgan believes that even an unknown debut author with no connections, platform, or following can truly sell tens of thousands of copies of a book, gather thousands of reviews, and attract fans of their work that will come back for more year over year. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So my first question is, what would you say is the biggest thing either that you did or you are doing that has helped you to achieve the freedom to do what you enjoy?
Well, this is going to come as no shocker, but I do think that me writing my own book was a huge turning point in my own journey, because prior to that, I was a freelancer, solopreneur. I was editing books and coaching writers, and we had little kids at the time too. So it was very side hustle, and I'm sure many of us, would empathize with the situation of kind of feast or famine. I'll take whatever I can get. You want me to edit your blog post? Sure. You want me to edit your email? Sure. You want me to do some random, ghostwriting, whatever. I basically said yes to all of it, which really diluted not only my sort of quote unquote brand, although as a solo freelancer, it's really tricky to build your own brand, but it also diluted what I felt like I could charge per hour or for a project, because I knew I was willing to do all these grab bag sort of projects. And when I decided to write the book, which is straightforwardly called Start Writing Your Book Today, it was really me drawing a line in the sand and saying, you know what? I prefer books. Editing books, helping people write books. Books are more valuable in the mind of my client. They're willing to pay more for book editing than, say, blog post editing. And then thirdly, it fills up my time in a much more efficient way, because if I can get one book client, that's much better than trying to get, 20 blog posts to edit or something like that. And so when I published that book, not only was it, a new source of income and revenue for me in the business, but it was also my way of really saying, and now this is the work that I do. I edit books. It's high value. I only need a few high paying clients, and that's the business model that I'm going to go after. And that made a huge difference in kind of those early years of my career.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think one of the things that is really cool about creating online courses is that you may have this specific thing that you enjoy. Like maybe you enjoy coaching more than like online courses, and you want to work with somebody one-on-one and like provide that full capacity of value of what you can do. But what's cool about like creating a course, or even a book in this case, is that it's helping to guide everybody to like that first certain point. So you don't have to do that yourself, and you can do that at a greater scale. And then when they say like, okay, well now I want you to help me all the way. And like in your case, like writing a book, publishing a book, all of that, like now you can do that and focus on the point that you enjoy the most.
Yeah. And honestly, that's why I was so glad to come speak to your community, Brian, because books and courses go so hand in hand, and you're exactly right. The mentality is even similar. Why you would write a book and why you would create a course. It's like, well, I am positioning myself as an expert or a guide in this niche, in this segment of the market. I'm creating, a title and a scope of what you're going to learn with me in the course or in the book. They're kind of the same. And then if you want to go further with me, if you want to work with me one-on-one or come to a live event or something like that, segueing people from a book or a course into that higher paid work is a natural progression. It's a natural customer journey. So yeah, books and courses, we speak the same language.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's really interesting now that like you're helping people in like creating this publishing company, and like we've talked on here before a little bit of like the process of actually like writing a book, like what that would look like, how you can get it done, but like publishing it and then like choosing to self-publish or work with a publishing company, like that's one thing. But then like what actually goes into everything and what you have to prepare, I think there's a lot that's hidden about that creators and entrepreneurs would want to know about. And I've gotten to see like some of the behind the scenes. My wife has a book that was published. So I got to see from that. She worked with a publisher, a smaller publisher, but like I got to understand a little bit of how it works from that. And also seeing like other entrepreneurs like preparing these big book launches and like realizing that like when they want to get on the bestseller list, like they're figuring out like, well, who can I sell like all these copies to my books to in like bulk, and like the months going into planning like before the book actually launches where all of that is happening. And so there's so many things that happen it's not like, oh, I finished the book, now I hit send and it's done. Like there's a lot that goes into all that. So I would definitely like to kind of like demystify some of that with you here today. So with that said, I guess like what are some of the main challenges that you see authors facing when they want to publish their book? And like either self-publishing or with traditional or hybrid publishers. And how does your company, Paper Raven Books, address these challenges?
Yeah. Well, you already sort of alluded to it, Brian. It's like our first major decision is how am I even going to get this book published? And that is a decision that I recommend that we approach with some intentionality, because who we publish with will dictate, or at least very much influence the type of book launch that we start to put together. So when you're working with a traditional publisher, you will often that's really the only way that you have access to even get on a bestsellers list in a lot of ways, like the New York Times, especially. People always ask about the New York Times. And traditional publishers have access to distribution and mainstream bookstores. And there's an agreement between all of these establishments that they will take pre-orders of the book 6 months in advance. But they won't actually run the order on that day. They will actually hold the pre-orders until launch day. That's the secret behind getting on, for instance, the New York Times bestseller list. Is you're working with a traditional publisher. You have sort of this built-in way of getting pre-orders. So every month for 6 months, you can sell 1,000 books, 2,000 books. You want to get something like 6,000 to 15,000 books sort of sold in a pre-order time frame, because all of those stack up, and then that order is released on launch day. So 6 months of work all comes to fruition on one day. That's your launch day. And if you get enough books sold, then you get to hit a list. There's a couple other, gotchas with a list. New York Times requires an editor to sort of sign off and vouch for your book, and it has to be across sort of all culturally relevant points of the U.S. Has to be West Coast and East Coast, North and South, right? So there's some different little bits and pieces there. Paperback versus hardback is important, things like that. But the main strategy is still the same for many traditionally published books. Let's set that pre-order campaign. Let's stack up a bunch of bonuses, and let's go out there and get thousands, if not more than 10,000 people to pre-order the book. When you see, who knows, the Richard Bransons and the Marie Forleos and all those folks, that's the strategy that they're doing. when we start talking about self-publishing or even a lot of the hybrid publishers, that strategy doesn't work the same way because many of us will be selling our books through Amazon. Amazon does not play the pre-order game. Amazon's like, it sold on the day it sold. Someone put in a credit card, that's the day it sold. So instead of being able to stack up 6 months worth of pre-orders to release on one day, what you accidentally end up doing is have 6 months of pre-orders that are like diluting your entire launch. So it's like, oh, I got a couple hundred here and a few hundred there and a few hundred there. And then launch day came and I sold a few hundred more, but like not enough to like move the needle in the same way. So when we start talking about what to do pre-launch for our authors, what we love to recommend is to build your book launch team. And for you guys who have courses and communities, this is golden for you because you've got fans built in. So we love to take people to a landing page. You get an exclusive preview of the book, maybe stack some cool bonuses on it and say, be a part of my book launch team. Get hundreds, heck, however many you want, thousands of people on a book launch team. Get them to download your ebook or buy your book on a launch day. Leave a review, and now we're really climbing the Amazon charts. And so it's really, it boils down to, am I going to use bookstores, like your brick and mortar bookstores, or am I going to use Amazon? Because they are two pretty different strategies. Does this pop up any questions or thoughts for you, Brian?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, as you were saying, you have to decide like what is your goal with the book. Almost before you choose how you want to publish it. Like, do you have to be like a New York Times bestseller? Like, is that the only purpose of why you're doing this? Or like, is it another reason? And like, do you want to sell it on Amazon? Like, is that your goal? What if somebody's struggling with that? What's a reason that they would like choose, like, why would I want to be on the New York Times bestseller list versus selling on Amazon?
New York Times is helpful for positioning and for like big media. So if you want to, get interviewed on Good Morning America and, the Today Show and those sorts of, like, you really want to make a much bigger brand play and get that big media exposure, you're going to have a lot better chance if you have the New York Times kind of seal of approval behind you. For many of us, though, I would suggest if we just want more customers or more clients, there are some major advantages to self-publishing that people are starting to talk about more than they ever have before. One of the advantages to self-publishing is you just get to keep a higher percentage of the royalties. On an ebook on Amazon, you keep 70% of that retail price if it's priced between $2.99 and $9.99. So we can get into details if you want, but you get to keep 70% of that retail price. With a traditionally published book, you typically are keeping something like 10% of the retail price. And so, that's just an easy one. But also when we self-publish, we get to have the files. So if we wanted to, let's say, include a copy of the book with a course purchase, we could print the book at cost, which might be like $3. If you go with a traditional publisher, you have to buy it from them, and it might be 50% of retail. It might be $10 per book. If you're going to run a book funnel and you're going to, send the book directly to people, like take them to a checkout page, they pay you for the book, and then you mail it to them. That's way easier to do if you self-publish because you're getting the book at cost and you're getting to mail it directly to them. Now you have their mailing address, their phone number, their email address. And so all of these sorts of things are becoming more, talked about as benefits for self-publishing. The main drawback to self-publishing is it is more difficult to get into your brick and mortar bookstores, and it's more difficult, almost impossible to get on like the New York Times. Does that kind of help offer some pro-con delineations?
Yeah, definitely. So like if someone wanted to work with you then and like go through the process of distributing their book, how would that work as far as like for Amazon, it's really clear, like I can publish an ebook, but what about like if I wanted to have like a paperback or hardback format?
Yeah. Yeah. All of that, it's almost just as easy to publish a physical book as an ebook. Like you have to get the same files together, right? You still need to write the book, get it edited. You need a title and a subtitle and a description and a cover. Like you need all the same things. It's just that when you go to actually upload files to the printer, which could be, for many of us, it's Amazon KDP. Ingram Spark is the other option. Ingram Spark does allow bookstores to order from that printer, but most of us are going to use Amazon KDP. It's just uploading files. There's like an ebook file and there's a paperback file and there's a hardback file, but they're almost identical, right? And there's a ebook interior and a paperback interior and a hardback interior, but they're almost identical. So all the prep work, like 99% of the work is done. And then it's just getting those files together. So we typically recommend publishing both ebook and physical book. And you're right. I mean, it's actually free to do on Amazon KDP. And for many of us, like if we are technically savvy enough to do like courses, we can click around, the Amazon KDP interface and figure that out. The main challenge is the reason why someone would work with our team, Paper Raven Books is our team. We're self-publishing services. They come to us because they want editors. Right. And they want to make sure they're getting good editors who have like demonstrated their, especially book editing expertise. You can find a lot of editors. Have they ever worked with books? That's kind of a question mark. And then, design. So like getting a cover design, getting an interior design, and, the back and forth on finalizing all those files. And then the other thing that our team does, I think is somewhat unique, is keywords and categories on Amazon and helping to make sure that your book is very visible on Amazon so that like the keywords, they work essentially the same as a Google search. You know how you go to Google and you type in a keyword and Google populates the results. We call it SEO, right? Search engine optimization. It's the same thing on Amazon. It just has its own algorithm. So you just need to know which keywords people are typing into the search bar that have very little competition. But same idea. You want high search volume, low competition. We do that research. One of the tools that we like that anyone could use is called Publisher Rocket. Publisher Rocket by Dave Chesson over at Kindlepreneur. We love that software. It's really easy to use. It can be a little difficult to like find the best keywords, but you'll probably find some decent ones. And then the other strategy is categories. How do we make sure that we're hitting number one in categories? And you don't want to hit number one in categories just so that you can have the Amazon bestseller badge. I mean, I guess, sure, that's fine. But really what it's doing algorithmically when you hit number one in a category is it's showing the book more widely in those like browsing bars. When you're on an Amazon sales page and it has like other products related to this item and you can like click through horizontally to see the little Brian's getting all my hand movements. And I'm illustrating it out with all my gestures, but the little bitty, rectangular product images for books, and you can scan those horizontally. Amazon populates those with categories. So if you're hitting number ones in these categories, it's going to get populated in those browsing bars. Now people are seeing your book in search. They're seeing your book when they're browsing through these browsing bars is what they're called. And so that kind of strategy and like, how do we make sure that we're hitting the number ones? Those kinds of things are what our team end up helping out with most of our clients.
Got it. So I'm curious, like, what does it look like as far as like what has to be optimized there? Like, is it just the Amazon listing, like the name, like the description, or is it actually also like the book itself? Because like, unlike a blog post, you can't like optimize your book keywords after you wrote it.
It's usually the sales page itself and then the metadata, which is like the data that's kind of behind the scenes in the product listing. So, fairly obvious things for any of us who do sales pages online. The cover's got to be good. The title, the subtitle, the author name. You want to think about if you have I don't know, an MBA or something, and it's a business book, do you want to put that in your author name? Maybe. The description of the book, of course, you want it to be very easy for the reader to say, this book will be helpful for me. I even see bullet points on how helpful it's going to be. The same way we would write almost like a mini sales page for a course. And also the price, you want your ebook to be probably somewhere in that $2.99 to $9.99. Your paperback's going to be somewhere around $19.99. Just, kind of be thinking about those, all the things that a reader would see when they're looking at your book. There is a section that you can pull out for like editorial reviews. If you get any praise blurbs, any endorsements, you can add those to your page. That would certainly optimize it. That would make it higher converting, we could say. The reviews themselves, the user reviews, can you get 20, 50, 100 reviews in a few weeks or a few months after your book launches? And all of those things will help. Yes, Amazon will show your page more frequently with those keywords and those categories plugged in. And when people click on your page, they are also more likely to buy. They're more likely to convert if they see a lot of these, what they would expect in social proof and what they want in a book. So we think about optimizing the sales page itself a lot, as well as those keywords and categories that are in the kind of hanging out in the background.
Got it. So yeah, many authors or like people dreaming of being authors would want to have this loyal readership. And what strategies do you recommend for somebody who's an aspiring author to kind of build that dedicated fan base? And like, how would they go about that even before they start writing their book?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that I want to mention for kind of gathering your readership. And I think people who are interested in creating courses are prime position to use your book in this way. So I like to think of, once your book is published on Amazon, you actually have access to an entire source of traffic that you did not have access to before. Because Amazon has a tremendous volume of search, right? People just go to Amazon and search, and you don't get populated in that search unless you have a book. As soon as you have a book, your book cover can be shown to all these folks who are searching. They can click in, and then most people will look inside the book. And when they look inside the book, they're actually shown the first 10% of the book. So you can put a freebie, a lead magnet, the same type of lead magnet that we would use on any other traffic platform, you can use for Amazon as well. Offer a free guide, a free mini course, a free companion course, a free printable, a free checklist, a free audiobook, a free meditation, whatever it is. Offer a free thing. Have a dedicated page right at the front of that book. Thanks for buying my book. Free thing. They might get the free thing even if they haven't bought your book. That's fine, because it's a lead magnet. It's to get the email address. And so once you have this in your book, everything else that you do, every other book promotion you ever do, you're also getting leads into your email service provider, just like any other advertising. So that's kind of, I like to seed that idea so that, to help people get on board with the idea of like long-term book marketing, that it's not just about all the marketing you do before you launch the book, because don't worry, everything you do once you launch your book is going to bring leads into your ecosystem. And so then really your question, Brian, was like, well, what do they do? What do we do before? How do we gather the readership before, especially to support the launch? And for those of us who are writing anything that's nonfiction, we really do have an advantage because we can do the social media, following, building, like all the folks who offer the best practices. It's all the same strategies, right? I'm writing a book about how to play guitar. I'm looking at your guitars back there, Brian. I'm writing a book about how to master, the first 12 chords of playing a guitar so you can play 1,000 songs or whatever. Well, that's what my book is going to be about. So if I'm building my community, which is also going to be folks who might buy my course, I'm going to be posting about guitar chords and, songs, and I'm out of my depth already, but like, different types of guitars, or which ones might be best for different players, or, just information around guitars, so that a few months leading up to your book launch, when you go out to this Facebook group or this Instagram audience or this TikTok audience, and you tell them, hey, guess what? I have a book around mastering the 12 most essential chords of guitars that will let you play your 1,000 first songs. And you're going to get an exclusive preview when you join my book launch team. Well, now everything is supporting and building each other, right? Like, you're gathering the community around the topic. You're giving them the exclusive preview in exchange for being a part of the book launch team. And everyone who is a part of your community and buying your book or supporting your book might also get into your course. It all builds, right? So that was a long answer, but hopefully that provides some thought.
I like
to
that.
chew
I
on.
think that many people who would approach something like this, like, they want to see, like, okay, well, I know this can be good for me in some way, but when you have a path that you see that by promoting it, it helps grow something else, and there's these multiple ways why you would want to promote it, it really makes the whole thing a lot easier. And it makes it click more in your head of like why you want to do this, instead of, I think many people get like kind of scatterbrained and thinking there's all these ways for me to promote myself or grow my brand, and you try all of them, but it just doesn't feel like it's connecting, kind of. And I know for myself, at least, like whenever we think of some kind of marketing idea where like, well, if we do this, it will not only promote this, but it promotes this part too. It just feels like, okay, I definitely want to do this now, because there's it all, like, I can't lose from it of promoting that.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure y'all talk about this on the podcast, and I'm sure you talk about it inside of your communities and everything too. It's like, you just want to be the go-to person for your topic, right? And so when people see your name, they want to associate it with the thing that you want to be famous for, that you want to be the go-to person for. And so whether it's free content or a book or a course, as long as it's all around that same topic that you're the go-to person for, it's all going to build.
Yeah. So do you have any maybe example stories you could share of like a successfully published book, in like, how did it serve as a marketing tool for either like someone's personal brand, their course, anything they had in their business?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I will say that so if you go to paperravenbooks.com, we have a page called Our Books that kind of shows all of our books. And I mean, you would notice that some of them are nonfiction, some of them are fiction, some of them are memoir. So we do help people with different types of book marketing strategies. And so what we're going to be focusing on here is kind of the nonfiction strategies for the most part. But for instance, like, Andrea Grayson just published a book called The Sweet Tooth Dilemma, and she helps people quit sugar. So she has courses and coaching all around quitting sugar. And so what we did was put at the very beginning of her book, The Sweet Tooth Dilemma, we put a freebie that's all around how to like quit sugar, right? And different recipes and things like that. And you get on her email list and she follows up. We recommend asking your new lead to leave a review for your book. That helps people to come back and leave a review for your book. But then after that, you can give them information about your course, right? And so she's actually bringing people directly from her book and then emailing them, information about her evergreen course. Or sometimes she'll mix it up and say, hey, I'm doing a live workshop. Come check out my free live workshop, which of course is a webinar to sell the course, right? And so you have all of these different opportunities. I think she even is, I don't know if she's done it yet, but we just recently talked about, well, why don't you reach out to your email list and suggest that they catch the YouTube video that you just posted, right? And so cross-pollinate a little bit from your email list to your social media, offer them webinars, offer them information about your evergreen courses, that sort of thing. So you can see how like yes, it could be overwhelming in that I can do these things in different orders or something like that. But the good news is that you're not going to do anything wrong because you're gathering the audience around this topic. And so as long as you're getting them from your book onto your email list, you'll be able to follow up with them and help them to find the right product or service for them. And just a couple of other quick examples for different genres and topics. So there's also Dr. Terry Pease has a book on love, dignity, and Parkinson's, and she helps people who have recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's to figure out their care for their partner. Colleen Conlon has the Kettlebell Catalyst, and she has a whole free guide on getting started with kettlebells. And she's a coach for kettlebells. She has a course and she coaches, one-on-one. Beverly Asante Pushman has a book called Ace the Half. It's all about training for a half marathon, training for your first half marathon. Dave Stoltz has Women, Divorce, and Money. And it's all about, if you're going through a divorce, how do you protect your assets, basically, which becomes a really painful, point for many folks. Tom Emerson is a strategic retreat planner, and he has a book called Chunk, Unthink Everything You Thought You Knew About Strategic Planning Retreats, and he's much more of a consultant. But they're all using these exact same principles, right? Put a lead magnet at the beginning of that book, get people onto your email address, onto your email list, and then you can help them figure out the best way to continue their work with you. Does that help to have those kinds of examples?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think just looking at it from the perspective of saying okay, well, by being on Amazon, there's all these people searching on Amazon for this kind of thing. And it's like the equivalent of being present in another search engine, another social network or something like this. There's an audience there that now you get to potentially capture them and not only sell them something, but get them becoming a member of your audience on your email list. One thing that I heard, I don't remember who it was that I heard this idea from, but is also an interesting way I thought to think about it, that when somebody goes and reads your book, now they've just learned all of this stuff. They're in the prime position to go and buy that course from you, that coaching program, because they just learned all of this and you demonstrated now how you're an expert in this, and you built up a lot of probably trust and desire in that process, where you can often go right from there and probably mention something in the book, you mentioned about a webinar. It could be right to here's where you can go buy it if you want to. And you're not trying to just you're not trying to rip anybody off and sell them this thing just to make them buy something else. But in providing all that value to somebody, you're showing them that you can take them to that next step in the journey.
Yeah. And I will say, Brian, I get asked a lot, especially by course creators. They're like, well, I already have this course. In fact, I had this conversation with Andrea Grayson about the quitting sugar. She's like, well, it's not that complicated to quit sugar, right? I have a course and I want to have a book, but should I write everything in the book? Should I include everything in the book? Or should I withhold some pieces? And I was like, put everything in. This is my, suggestion for, especially for folks who are content creators, course creators, is don't hold anything back. Very likely it won't all fit, right? You'll get 40,000 or 60,000 words in deep and you'll be like, ooh, there's other stuff they're going to need. They're going to need this video demonstration. They're going to need this, worksheet or this other deep dive or this tutorial or whatever. So, but write everything out that you think that they would need to know to succeed in this topic. Because as soon as they finish that book, exactly as you're saying, Brian, now they trust you. Now they're like, oh, I want to do this. I just read it, but I haven't done anything. Now I'm ready to do something. And sure, at the end of that book, offer a link where they can go and get more information. And that's one of the best places to get a hot lead, because they've finished your book. You can even drop them in, throughout the book if you want. I've seen this done with companion courses. You have let's say you have 12 modules. They could be small, 10-minute modules, right? Of a companion course that corresponds to 12 chapters in a book. At the end of each chapter, it's scan this QR code, go check out the free companion course, watch the 10-minute video where I, provide an example about how to do this. And so you can sprinkle those throughout as well if you want. But certainly also at the end, if you want the full, free companion course guide, more information, go to this link, scan this QR code, and that takes them to a place where at the very least they could provide their email address. I would say capturing their email address is really important, because if you take them straight to the sales page, there's a decent chance they're going to bounce. Right? We know conversion rates. It's like 5% of people are going to actually convert. I wouldn't want to lose those 95%. I guess if you're pixeling them, that's a different question. But pixels, cookies, tracking, I mean, that's a deep dive in a whole other area.
The email is most important. And that was really the most interesting thing to me, I think, is hearing the idea of putting that lead magnet there. So when somebody goes to look inside the book, they see it there, even if they don't buy the book yet. I really like that. And that's how we always think about it, is the email address. That's what we care about. We never expect anybody to buy from us, just going to our website. We never expect anyone to buy from us just being a social media follower. Yeah. And we have way more email addresses than we do on social media following. And I'm proud of that, because the people on the email, when we send emails, that's when people buy from us. And for course creators, coaches, community builders, it's going to be the same for you. So
I totally agree. And that has been interesting, just because I've been trying to reach out to bigger media sources, your Yahoos and MSNs and Fox and whatever. And they always want to know, what's your media following? How many do you have on Facebook or Instagram? And I'm like, well, I mean, I think I've got 10,000 on Facebook, but I've got 70,000 on email. Do you care about that? I'll just email everyone if that's what you really want. But it's interesting because we've lost.
I was surprised myself, seeing how often, they ask the social following instead of the email list, because online marketers and everyone knows the email list. That's the important thing. That's what you want. The social media impression, a lot of people posting about on social media, people may not even see it, even if the following was equal. But the email is a much bigger thing. So.
Yeah. And just to reiterate that for all of us, I think some of us, me too, we get caught in the cycle and we lose sight. And it's the social media is good for discussion and visibility and catching people who you might not otherwise have exposure to. But the goal is to get them on the email list, right? That's where, to your point, Brian, you'll actually sell people is through the email itself. Yeah,
definitely. All right, cool. Well, I've got one more question for you, Morgan, and that is, on this show, we like to ask every guest to ask a question to our audience. So if you could ask our audience anything, something you're curious about, something you kind of want to get everybody thinking about, what would that be?
Yeah, this is a question that I like to give writers who are on the journey to essentially writing their first book. And when we're trying to figure out, what's the scope of this book going to be? What's this book going to cover? And I would encourage everyone to think about, okay, if I were going to write a book, what would it be about? And put yourself 5 or 10 years into the future. Not next year, not 2 years from now, but really try to push yourself further and further into the future. What do I still want to be talking about 5 years from now, maybe even 10 years from now? Because I found that when I go through this thought exercise with writers, sometimes we actually kind of broaden up just a little bit, what type of book that we're going to be writing. And I think when we are very focused, especially digital marketing, things like that, we tend to get very focused on the next sale. And even my example was learn the 12 chords for guitar. And sometimes we broaden up and we're actually, I want to talk about what it takes to be, a musician, to bring music into your life. And that can help you think about your business in the long term, because we want to write a book that's going to open up possibilities for you over the long term, a type of book that you're going to be excited to keep talking about, yes, this year and next year and the year after that and the year after that. So that would be my question for everybody. If you're thinking about writing a book or another book, what book would you be excited to still be talking about 5 and maybe even 10 years from now?
Well, yeah, that's a really good way to think of it. I like that. All right, well, Morgan, thanks so much for coming on the show. before we get going, where else can people find you online?
Sure. Yeah. Head over to paperravenbooks.com for information about us. And if you don't mind, Brian, I do have a gift for everyone.
Sure, yeah.
If when we were talking about uploading files to KDP and keywords and categories, and you want like the overview of like, what is this process? Give me the checklist, give me the roadmap. I have that for you. It's a 14-page checklist, and it is a one-sheet overview of the whole process, writing and producing those files and getting ready to launch your book. And you can have access to that for free just because you are listening to Brian's podcast. And you get access to that by going to paperravenbooks.com/ready, READY. Ready. So paperravenbooks.com/ready. I will ask for your email address, just, to be upfront. But then it will plug you directly
Everybody
into.
understands why, I think, now.
It will
But
plug
yeah,
you directly
great.
into our community. We have a circle community. And so there you'll have a companion video, me walking you through it, giving you the checklist, giving you the roadmap. And then you can also pop in and ask questions there too.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, Morgan.
Cool. Thank you, Brian. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.